Kafkaesque, a response to industrial dislocation and alienation. I will start the presentation by presenting my thesis. Next, I will define the Industrial Revolution and explore its societal effects. Next, I will talk about Franz Kafka and other literature during this era. And finally, I will analyze how the themes and structure of Kafka's writing resulted in the term Kafkaesque and explain why it best exemplifies the social issues that were brought on by the Industrial Revolution. First, let me read you my thesis. The rise of industrialization and mass production during the 19th century brought about a growing sense of dislocation and alienation, which is evidenced by the themes and techniques found in modern art and literature. This phenomenon is exemplified by the work of Franz Kafka, who expertly captures the sense of alienation through the creation of the Kafkaesque genre, characterized by nightmarishly bizarre and bureaucratic stories. But what is the Industrial Revolution? The Industrial Revolution marks a period of significant economic and technological growth due to the invention and execution of new manufacturing processes in the United States, Western Europe, and perhaps most famously, Great Britain. Most scholars define the Industrial Revolution as having taken place primarily from 1760 to 1830. Before the Industrial Revolution, your family may have specialized in a trade that was taught and passed down from generation to generation. Working-class jobs included farming and individualized crafts such as cobbling or sewing. Workers were often in the company of their families or animals and were able to see the fruits of their labor and feel rewarded by the work that they did with their hands. That is, until the Industrial Revolution revolutionized labor with the steam engine, the cotton gin, advancements in cast iron making, and the invention of the milling machine, just to give you a few things to visualize. These inventions sped up various labor processes exponentially and led to the invention of the factory. All of a sudden, the work of 100 men could be done in minutes by the cotton gin and other machine tools, putting farmers and craftsmen out of business and with no other option but to take on factory work. The revenue generated by the elite only furthered the wealth discrepancy between classes. Now the workday, which was often 12 hours, looked like this. Men weren't the only ones affected. In fact, most factories primarily employed women and children. According to the research of Dr. Martin Abshanka, an Australian psychologist whose research on the Industrial Revolution and mental health has been accepted by the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, the Industrial Revolution left psychological scars that can still be seen today. The abstract of the study, a collaboration between various experts in psychology, history, and economics and geography, states the following. We propose that the Industrial Revolution, as a key era in the history of industrialized nations, has led to a persistent clustering of well-being outcomes and personality traits associated with psychological adversity via processes of selective migration and socialization. The researchers utilized many sources, from baptism records to online psychological surveys, and were able to confirm that industries create psychological damage that perpetuates even when they are gone. These traits include higher neuroticism, lower conscientiousness, and lower extroversion. Symptoms of these traits include depression, anxiety, shyness, irritability, poor self-control and self-management, and anger. But why is this? It's easy to empathize with the stress of the working class. Just from these depictions, it is clear that the working conditions of the Industrial Revolution were less than desirable, to say the least. But other psychological research cited by this study fills in the blanks and allows for a more in-depth analysis of the insidious factors at play. The main contributing factor in the adverse psychological effects of industrial labor was, unsurprisingly, the nature of the work. The repetitivity was dulling and demeaning, and there wasn't any satisfaction or artistry in pushing a button or pulling a lever over and over in a crowded sweatshop. The labor was not only stressful, but dangerous. Lack of autonomy and complexity at work is scientifically proven to have negative effects on workers' personality. Parents' experiences at work inform how they raise their children, transmitting traits such as conformity and lack of critical thinking. Women and children's employment robbed children of their childhoods and women of motherhood. I urge you to keep these facts in mind as we take a look at Franz Kafka. Franz Kafka. Kafka was born in Prague in July of 1883. Here is a map of Europe a year before he published The Metamorphosis in 1914. The red star indicates where he was born. Kafka was the eldest of 6 in a middle-class Jewish family who spoke primarily German. His father owned a clothing retail business, and his mother was better educated than his father due to her father's social status. Kafka wasn't born in the middle of the Industrial Revolution. Rather, his life followed it as its problems grew more and more apparent and harder for the wealthy to ignore. His mother spent up to 12 hours on business days assisting her husband, which left the Kafka children lonely, particularly Franz Kafka being the eldest. In his adulthood, Kafka worked in the insurance industry in a few different roles. These included working in the legal department and as an accident insurance claims adjuster. His work in insurance inspired and influenced a majority of his work. Kafka never married or had any children, and Kafka's writing only became famous after his death from tuberculosis at only 40 years of age. It is estimated he burned 90% of his writing due to his poor self-image. For his entire lifetime, Kafka believed that others found him repulsive, a theme explored in his story The Metamorphosis, where the protagonist Gregor wakes up to find he has transformed into a bug. Biographies of Kafka make it clear that in actuality others perceived him as attractive and intelligent, although a bit austere, which means in Kafka's case solemn and serious-looking. They did note that Kafka possessed a good sense of humor. This is common among tortured types like Kafka. The best way to understand Kafka is to read his own words, collected from his diaries. I was afraid of mirrors, because they showed an inescapable ugliness. Don't you want to join us? I was recently asked by an acquaintance when he ran across me alone after midnight in a coffee house that was already almost deserted. No, I don't, I said. My job is unbearable to me because it conflicts with my only desire and my only calling, which is literature. Since I am nothing but literature and can and want to be nothing else, my job will never take possession of me. It may, however, shatter me completely, and this is by no means a remote possibility. I feel an unhappiness which almost dismembers me, and at the same time am convinced of its necessity. My condition is not unhappiness, but it is also not happiness. Not indifference, not weakness, not fatigue, not another interest. So what is it then? Should I be grateful, or should I curse the fact that despite all misfortune I can still feel love, an unearthly love, but still for earthly objects? People label themselves with all sorts of adjectives. I can only pronounce myself as nauseatingly miserable beyond repair. While Kafka wasn't an industrial laborer himself, his business-oriented parents and dull office work gave him a lot of the same psychological challenges. Kafka's work differs from other famous works surrounding the Industrial Revolution, such as The Jungle and Oliver Twist. While the prerogative of this literature was to expose the true horrors of the working condition and inspire pity and change, Kafka's work came from a more personal place and dealt with the feelings of disillusionment working in a post-industrial society brought upon him. Kafkaesque, a term coined by scholars to describe the complex, bizarre, disillusioned world of Kafka's literature, is defined by bureaucratic, nightmarish qualities. It is less assertively political as its counterparts and focuses on the surreal world these feelings create. In my paper, I analyze a few of Kafka's stories, but for time today I will discuss the trial and how it relates to the aftermath of the Industrial Revolution. The trial reflects the Industrial Revolution through its portrayal of the dehumanizing effects it has had on modern society. The novel's protagonist, Joseph K., is caught up in a legal system that operates like a machine, with faceless bureaucrats and impersonal institutions determining his fate. He doesn't know what he is on trial for. This depiction can be read as a critique of the rationalist and mechanistic worldview that emerged during the Industrial Revolution, which often prioritized efficiency and productivity over human needs and dignity. The novel's themes of powerlessness and alienation also reflect the social changes that accompanied the Industrial Revolution. As traditional forms of social and economic organization were upended by industrialization, many individuals found themselves dislocated and adrift in a world that no longer made sense. Kafka's work can be seen as capturing this sense of existential unease and anxiety, as characters like Joseph K. struggle to find meaning and purpose in a world that seems indifferent to their needs and desires, and is.
wrong? You feel a little dizzy?
Yes.
Oh, don't worry. Almost everybody has an attack like that on their first visit. It's the air. That too, all sorts of washing is hung up here to dry. You can't forbid the tenants to wash their dirty things. No, there's just nothing we can do about that, I'm afraid. Where are you going? You want me to have you taken to the sick room?
Please don't trouble yourself. I feel fine if I could just get some air.
It's not far now. Here's the door, right? Why don't you go out? That's what you wanted.
Yes. Thank you.
I'm not used to the fresh air.
Thank you, and here are my works cited.